September 4th, 476 AD. A barbarian warlord named Odoacer walks into the palace at Ravenna. He doesn't come to negotiate. He comes to end an empire. The boy emperor Romulus Augustulus, 16 years old, powerless, terrified, is given a choice: abdicate or die. He chooses life. With that single act, the Western Roman Empire, an empire that had ruled the Mediterranean for over 800 years, simply stopped existing. But here's what they don't teach you in school. Rome didn't fall everywhere at once. From Britannia to North Africa, from Hispania to the Balkans, the collapse played out differently in every corner of the empire. Some regions descended into chaos within years. Others preserved Roman civilization for centuries. And a few, they never fell at all. This is the fall of Rome, every region explained. To understand how Rome fell, you first need to understand what Rome was in its final century. By 400 AD, the empire had been split in two for administrative purposes. The Western Empire, capital in Ravenna, was broke, politically unstable, and crawling with Germanic tribes who'd been invited in as allies, but now operated as kingmakers. The Eastern Empire, ruled from Constantinople, was wealthier, more defensible, and frankly, more interested in survival than unity. The Western Roman army, it barely existed. By the mid-5th century, most Roman legions were actually Germanic mercenaries, Visigoths, Franks, Vandals, commanded by warlords who owed loyalty to themselves, not Rome. Historian Edward Gibbon would later write, "The empire had been purchased by gold and was now to be defended by the sword, but the sword was in barbarian hands." And then came the year 410. Alaric the Visigoth sacked Rome itself. Not since the Gauls in 390 BC had the eternal city fallen. The psychological wound was catastrophic. Saint Jerome, writing from Bethlehem, said, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." Rome was no longer invincible, and every region of the empire knew it. Let's start where the collapse began earliest: Britannia. In 407 AD, a usurper named Constantine III pulled the last Roman legions out of Britain to fight for control of Gaul. They never came back. The Britons sent a desperate letter to the Emperor Honorius in 410, begging for help against Saxon raiders. His response? Look to your own defenses. Within a generation, Britannia fragmented into dozens of Celtic kingdoms. Roman villas were abandoned. Cities decayed into ghost towns. Latin disappeared from daily speech. By 450 AD, Britain had essentially de-Romanized, faster and more completely than anywhere else in the empire. One Roman official wrote, "The Britons live like men in a nightmare, clinging to the memory of what was once real." Gaul, modern France, told a different story. The Visigoths settled in the southwest around Toulouse. The Burgundians took the east. The Franks seized the north. But here's the key. These tribes didn't destroy Roman culture. They absorbed it. Germanic kings minted coins with Latin inscriptions. They appointed Roman aristocrats as advisors. The Catholic Church, staffed by Roman-educated bishops, became the glue-holding society together. By 500 AD, a hybrid Romano-Germanic civilization had emerged. When Clovis, king of the Franks, converted to Catholic Christianity in 496, he didn't conquer Roman Gaul, he became Roman Gaul. The frontier provinces of the Rhine and Danube, those were the bloodlands. For decades, Huns, Goths, Vandals, and Alans swept back and forth across these territories. The city of Trier, once the Rome of the North, was sacked 4 times between 410 and 450. No stability, no recovery, just endless war. Now we reach the empire's heartland, Italy. After 476, when Odoacer deposed the last emperor, something strange happened. Life went on. Odoacer didn't call himself emperor. He ruled as King of Italy, but maintained Roman law, the Roman Senate, and even Roman taxes. Most Italians probably didn't notice much had changed. The guy in charge just had a different title. Then in 493, the Austro-Gothic king Theodoric conquered Italy. Theodoric was remarkable. A Goth by birth but Roman by education, he presided over a cultural golden age. He restored aqueducts, rebuilt the Colosseum, patronized scholars. The philosopher Boethius served in his court. "I am a barbarian among Romans, a Roman among barbarians," Theodoric allegedly said. For 40 years, Italy experienced a Roman revival under barbarian rule, but it wouldn't last. In 535, the Byzantine emperor Justinian decided to reconquer Italy. What followed was the Gothic War, 20 years of apocalyptic devastation, cities besieged, starved, sacked. The population of Rome plummeted from hundreds of thousands to perhaps 30,000. Aqueducts destroyed, fields abandoned. By 554, when the Byzantines won, Italy was a corpse. Justinian's reconquest killed what Theodoric had preserved. Hispania, modern Spain and Portugal, fell to the Visigoths in the early 400s. Like in Gaul, the Visigoths adopted Roman administration. They established their capital at Toledo and created a legal code, the Liber Judiciorum, that blended Roman law with Germanic tradition. Roman aristocrats collaborated. The Catholic Church thrived. Hispano-Roman culture survived, adapted, and continued. But there was one catastrophic difference from Gaul: religious conflict. The Visigoths were Arian Christians, considered heretics by the Catholic majority. For over a century, this created a deep social divide. When the Visigoths finally converted to Catholicism in 589, they'd wasted generations on sectarian conflict. Still, by 600 AD, Visigothic Hispania was stable, literate, and culturally vibrant. Roman identity persisted, just wearing a different crown. And then there's North Africa. In 429, the Vandals, yes, those Vandals, crossed from Hispania into Africa. They captured Carthage in 439 and established a kingdom that would last a century. The Vandals were brutal conquerors, but efficient administrators. They seized the richest grain-producing land in the Mediterranean and used it as leverage against both Rome and Constantinople. They persecuted Catholic Romans, confiscated estates, and were despised by the population. Unlike the Visigoths or Franks, they never integrated. When Byzantine forces under General Belisarius invaded in 533, the Vandal kingdom collapsed in a single campaign. But Byzantine rule wouldn't last either. A century later, the Arabs would arrive, and that would be the true end of Roman North Africa. Here's the secret they don't tell you. Rome never actually fell. The Eastern Roman Empire, what we call Byzantium, survived for another 1,000 years after 476. While the West fragmented, Constantinople thrived. It controlled Egypt, the Levant, Anatolia, and Greece, the wealthiest, most urbanized parts of the old empire. The Eastern emperors still called themselves Roman. They spoke Greek now, yes, but they maintained Roman law, Roman administration, and Roman identity. In the Balkans, the Danube frontier, things were messier. Slavic tribes began settling in the 6th and 7th centuries, pushing south into Greece and the Adriatic coast. The empire lost control of vast territories it had held for 700 years, but even here, Roman influence persisted. The Slavs adopted Christianity from Constantinople. Byzantine missionaries created the Cyrillic alphabet. Serbian and Bulgarian kingdoms emerged that saw themselves as heirs to Rome. In 800 AD, when Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans. In the West, the Byzantines were furious. "There is only one Roman Empire," they declared, and it rules from Constantinople. They weren't wrong. Byzantine emperors would continue claiming the title of Roman emperor until the very last one, Constantine V, died defending Constantinople's walls against the Ottomans in 1453. Rome's political structure collapsed in the West in 476, but Roman civilization, it migrated east, transformed, and endured. So, what actually happened when Rome fell? In Britain, cultural apocalypse and rebirth as Anglo-Saxon England. In Gaul, transformation into the Frankish kingdoms that would become medieval France and Germany. In Italy, centuries of suffering, then slow recovery under the Catholic Church. In Hispania, continuity under new management until the Islamic conquests. In North Africa, Byzantine restoration, then Islamic transformation. In the East, Rome survived as Byzantium for a millennium. There was no single fall. There were dozens of regional collapses, adaptations, and transformations, each following its own timeline. The Western Roman Empire didn't fall to barbarians. It was replaced by them, slowly, region by region, until one day people looked around and realized the empire just wasn't there anymore. But here's the remarkable thing. Even after the empire died, Roman law shaped European legal systems. Latin became the language of scholarship and the church. Roman architecture inspired cathedrals. Roman roads carried medieval armies. The Roman Empire fell. But Rome never really left. The fall of Rome wasn't an ending, it was a transformation. From the ashes of the empire rose medieval Europe, the Byzantine Empire, and eventually the world you live in today. If you want to understand how we got here, you have to understand what happened there. Hit that subscribe button if you want more deep dives into the moments that changed history forever.